Master of all worlds, highest power, merciful parent of compassion, in your presence, eternal one, source of strength for us, as you have been for our ancestors, we very humbly acknowledge you. What are we? What is our life that you have done such great kindness to us? Therefore, we place our appeals before you, so that you may forgive and absolve us of all our faults and failings. Let our faults never become barriers between us and you. And may it be your desire to prepare our hearts to feel awe and love for you. May you listen to these words of ours, and may you open our encumbered hearts to the mysteries of your Torah. May this our study be a source of pleasure before your throne of glory, like sweet incense. May you shower down upon us the light of our soul's source in all the ways by which we define ourselves. May the sparks of your holy servants, through whom you have revealed these words to the world, shine and sparkle. May their merit, their ancestors' merit, and the merit of their Torah, their innocence and their holiness, stand for us so as to prevent us from stumbling when we study these words. In their merit, may our eyes be illumined by what we study, as in the saying of the sweet singer of Israel, open my eyes that I may gaze into wonders of your Torah. May the words of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart be acceptable to you, my rock and my redeemer. For it is the Eternal who grants wisdom. It is from his mouth that knowledge and understanding issue forth. Na 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 na. Na na na. Na 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 na. Na na na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na na na. Na 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 na. Na na na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na na na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Good evening to everyone. We're on page 331. 331. And we're in the middle of a rich discussion that will continue, talking about various types of visionary experiences. And we've already had the discussion a little bit, and it's all connected, of course, to the fact that we're at the Torah reading in Vayetze of Jacob's dream of the ladder. But the discussion is about dreams and prophecy and visions. And to a certain extent, there'll be an attempt to try to differentiate between them and to see where they're connected and how they are related one to the other. And there were a number of distinctions made between dreaming and dreams and prophecy that we had in the previous couple of pages. And we're talking about dreams as experiences that somehow are deriving from a divine source, right? The Zohar believes it's certainly that the biblical dreams, where there's some kind of divine communication within the dream, Pharaoh's dream about the fat cows and the skinny cows. It's not just a dream, it's a dream that God is talking to you, says Joseph to Pharaoh. So even though it's a dream, and dreaming is, as we said last time, pretty common among people, there are at least some dreams that come out of a divine source, but that doesn't make them prophecy. Prophecy is not the same thing. Prophecy comes from both the right and the left, and dreaming only comes from the left. We talked about that last time. And one other difference is in terms of where these things can happen. Dreams can happen anywhere, but prophecy is limited to happening in the land of Israel, where Shekhinah is located. So then the last thing that we had was the problem that is brought up throughout rabbinic tradition. The Zohar didn't invent this question. What do we do with Yechezkel? What do we do with Ezekiel? Ezekiel's vision, which is one of the main mystical visions of all time. He has the chariot vision. That's the very beginning of the book of Ezekiel, and it locates it in Babylonia. It's not in the land of Israel. So the answer, does anybody remember, this is pretty much where we left it last week. What's the answer that the Zohar gives? And it's based also on the Rabbi's answers before that. What's the basic answer that the Zohar gives? Anybody? Yeah, Craig.
That Shekhinah was in exile with him there.
Right. And why was that necessary?
Well, because we had said that prophecy could only occur originally in the land of Israel where Shekhinah dwelt. But
so why is Shekhinah with Ezekiel in exile?
Shekhinah joins the children of Israel whenever they go into exile. She will be with them, and she'll return when they return.
Right.
But she's there to comfort them.
So God participates in the trials and tribulations and the sufferings of the Jewish people. This lesson is driven home in our tradition again and again and again. That's one of the messages of the vision that Moses has of the burning bush, that God is stuck in a thorn bush, the way that the Israelites are stuck in Egypt. This is God revealing to Moses that God's own feelings are with the people. So even though theoretically speaking, nevuah, prophecy, should only take place or could only take place in the place where God's being is most concentrated, and therefore, for instance, Jonah says, if I run away from Israel, I'll be able to run away from having to be a prophet. But Ezekiel, who is in Babylonia, not of his own choice. He didn't run away to Babylonia. He was exiled. He was exiled with the Babylonian exile, and therefore God was there anyway, because God had to be there. Otherwise, we would have lost all hope. Otherwise, we would have not survived. So for the sake of that continuity, God had to be there. So it was a hora'at sha'ah. It was an emergency measure. It was what God had to do. God had to break the rules of God's own protocols for the sake of the people of Israel. And as was pointed out last week, this follows a little bit in the discussion that we had earlier about how when the king visits somebody else, the person who's hosting the king should try to knock themselves out and accommodate the king. Nevertheless, when the king visits, the king will do all kinds of things to accommodate the king's self or the queen's self to the humble abode and the ways of behavior of the commoner. So the same thing here, God is relinquishing God's prerogative and appearing in prophecy to Yechezkel because we desperately needed it. So we're at that we're at the top of page 331. Who's gonna read for us? There you go. I wanted to see how fast the coordination would be between my question and your hand. So Beryl is our reader. Kimin Hagenu Hakadosh, as is our sacred custom. Okay, so Ezekiel saw what he saw. 331, the top.
Where is Ezekiel? In 331. Ezekiel saw what he saw at that very moment, even though that sight was unsuitable. So Hayao, happening, it happened.
Right. So this was an exceptional circumstance. At that very moment, he was able to have that vision, even though the place, Babylonia, was not the proper place for it. Nevertheless, it happened. It really happened. Hayao haya. Indeed, it very much happened. Okay.
What is the meaning of Hayao haya? Hayao, above, haya, below. As is written, a ladder set upon earth, its head reaching to heaven, moving above, moving below. Hayao haya, one above, one below.
Okay, so now we have a linkage with Jacob's experience. That verse is about the ladder that he saw. And we take out Hayao haya from just being an emphasis. Yes, this was an extraordinary exceptional to the rule. And now we say, no, the doubling is a doubling that alludes to the dual nature of what was being seen. So Hayao haya is part of the verse that introduces Ezekiel's vision. Let me just get there for a half a second. I'll wanna right. So this is verse 3. Hayo haya dvar Hashem el Yechezkel ben Buzi HaKohen be'eretz Kasdim al nahar kvar. Vatihi alav sham yad Hashem. So it happened, hayo haya, what happened, that the word of the Eternal came to Yechezkel, Ezekiel, the son of Buzi, the priest, in the land of the Kasdim, the Chaldees, on the banks of the river Kvar, and the hand of the Eternal was upon him. I hit this by mistake. Okay, so Hayo Haya, this is how it begins. So now what the Zohar says is Hayo and Haya, even though they're pronounced differently, they're written exactly the same way. Hey, Yud, Hey, Hey, Yud, Hey. And of course, we should notice that since this is a verb of being, it's related to, Craig is already nodding his head, to what?
Yud Hey Vav Hey.
Right. What God says to Moses at the burning bush is, I am the source of all being, present, past, future. So Hayo Haya, being, happening, is alluded to there. And we say here it's both above and below. The same letters are reflected. There's a correspondence between what's in heaven above and what's below on earth, just like the ladder is rooted both on earth and goes up into heaven, right? So there's a moving above and a moving below. Let's look at note 83.
Moving above, moving below. The latter symbolizes Shekhinah, who moves up or down, depending on human action, as explained below. The word
Natel,
natel can mean moving or taking, receiving. According to the latter sense, adopted by several commentators, Shekhinah receives the flow of emanation and prophecy from above, and the arousal of virtuous human conduct below.
right? So it's not just a static or mirror image, one of the other. There's a dynamic going on. There's a moving up and down, like the ladder indicates. And the word natel, natel liela, natel atata is what the phrase is in the Zohar. He translates it, moving above, moving below. But he says it, but it also can mean taking from above and taking from below. The word natel is like natilat yadayim, right? When we're supposed to take our hands, we're supposed to take hold of our hands. The idea is that there's a mutual taking. Heaven is taking from below, from the earth, and the earth is taking from above. So here it's talking about Shekhinah, but of course it's also, that's the essence of this prophecy, right? The essence of the prophetic experience is that there's this influx of energy, of divine force into the human being. The human being, of course, opening themselves up to take from above. In a certain sense, the prophet is taken by God, right? The hand of God is upon the prophet. Is being taken, and the prophet takes from above. Okay, here we go. Come and see.
Come and see. The ladder is planted firmly in two worlds, above and below, in the land of the Chaldeans by the river Kavar, in the land of the Chaldeans, in a place where exile prevails. Even so, al Nahar Kavar, by the river Kavar. What is Nahar Kavar? The river Kavar? That was Kavar, already, previously, for Shekhinah dwelled on it. As is written, a river issues from Eden to water the garden, and from there it divides and becomes 4 riverheads. This is one of those 4 rivers, and since she dwelled on it previously, manifesting there already, she dwelled there now, revealing herself to Ezekiel.
Okay, so it goes further into trying to solve the question of how is this possible? How is the divine revelation and the experience of it by a human being of this divine revelation, how is it possible outside of Shekhinah's dwelling place, the land of Israel? So we have, again, starting from the ladder, we go back to Ezekiel, right? Be'eretz Kazdim al Nahar Kvar. So the land of Chaldeans, in a place that exile prevails, right? He's not in his home, and he's not in Shekhinah's home. So he shouldn't be able to experience God's contact at all. Nevertheless, even so, he's al Nahar Kvar. He's right by the river. He's at the banks of the river Kvar. So the Zohar, following rabbinic midrash, says the word Kvar means already. It's not a place name. It's, no, this is the river that's always been there. It was already there from before. So what river is that? The answer is the river that comes out of Eden, that is described at the very beginning of the creation story, right? And a river will come out of Eden and water the garden, right? V'nahar yetzei me'Eden v'hishkai tagan. So that river is the divine flow of energy, of life, of light, of all being that comes out of the earliest, highest, purest sources of God's being, and then flows outward to water the world. So that river, that river has been flowing forever. It's always there. So the idea that it is making a special, unique exception, that's from one perspective. From another perspective, it's always been there. There is nothing new here. There is no breaking of the rules. The flow is continuous. The flow has never stopped. It's always been going on. The difference is that nobody noticed, nobody experienced it as such. And here Ezekiel experiences it and feels it. So the river is both a mystical, spiritual, divine flow of energy, and it's also the river Euphrates. It is that river, right? Where do you think the river Euphrates comes from? It comes from those 4 rivers that came out of Eden, that came out of God's creation. So that's how it's still possible for this experience to happen. And it becomes more of a horizontal image than a vertical. The latter image is heaven and earth, and this is Eden over there, and then flowing like a river that flows out from its source, and then starts expanding everywhere, and coming to exist as the Euphrates River. That's a defining river of Babylonia. So we have, again, place and time switching back and forth, and a sense of unique experience that's only actually, in a certain sense, noticed as unique, but it's always possible, and it's always happening if the awareness is triggered, right? And that some of that is what we say about below. There's the above, the river flows from above, as the arousal from below. Does the human being actually get it? Does the human being actually have that awareness? So I want to read a couple of more lines, and then I want to take a little detour. Go ahead.
Come and see. He dreamed. Was she revealed in a dream to holy Jacob, consummate patriarch?
So you have to read this a little bit like, was she revealed in a dream? But remember, what have we said? We've said that prophecy is on a higher level than dream. So now they're asking, Jacob, consummate patriarch. Continue.
In such a sacred sight, he saw only a dream.
Yeah, good.
Yet, at that time, Jacob was not yet married, and Isaac was still alive.
Okay. So they come back to the Jacob story after these discussions about Ezekiel, and they say, look, Ezekiel was in exile, and he had this prophecy. Well, what about Jacob? Jacob is the culmination of the unfolding of the human embodiment of God. Abraham, Isaac, and then Jacob is the best. Jacob is the perfect synthesis of both of them. Where is he? He's still in the land of Israel. He hasn't gotten to Haran yet. He's in Beit El. So why isn't he being vouchsafed a prophecy? If God wants to talk to him, why is it through a dream? What are the impediments here? It can't be that he was the same problem that we have with Ezekiel. So what's the answer? What does the Zohar suggest in that last line?
That Jacob would not receive prophecy as long as Isaac is alive.
That's right. So that's one of the two things that are being mentioned here. As long as Isaac is around, his father, he's not going to get the prophecy.
And he wasn't married.
Why not? Why just because Isaac is around, he can't become a prophet if Isaac is around? I mean, let's just sort of just unwrap this a little bit more.
Well, footnote 90 kind of answers it, I guess.
Cheater. Yeah, does it really? Does it really? Beryl, footnote 90.
Isaac was still alive, so Shekhinah rested primarily upon him.
To me, that's a note that doesn't explain anything.
Right.
It doesn't answer. It just says, okay, so no, Shekhinah was with Yitzchak, not with Yaakov. So I'm asking, so why not? Why? Good, let Shekhinah be. It's a contradiction. Shekhinah can only be with Yitzchak, can't be with Yaakov. Why can't Shekhinah be with Yaakov too? Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Because I mean, it seems to me, it doesn't seem like that explains it. It seems like the thing is that that the Shekhinah would rest in Gevurah at one point, and that it would then have to move to Yaakov, but it's maybe not ready to move from Gevurah to Tiferet.
Okay, and yet, as we will continue to unpack this, that's very much what that latter vision is, right?
Because it's moving down.
Moving, and that's what, moving, taking from above, taking from below. So, the idea, it's an intriguing idea. You're sort of suggesting that Shekhinah is a little bit being held hostage. She's stuck over there on the left, and can't move over into more hospitable territory.
The synthesis.
Right, to the synthesis part where the right and the left are combined, which is the place of prophecy. Now, again, so that's a paradox, because if prophecy abides with Isaac, prophecy comes from the right and the left. And if Isaac is on the left, he's still getting some movement of divine care, energy, revelation coming from the right as well. So it's a little hard to imagine that the Shekhinah is so glued that she can't move out. It's hard to imagine that there's such a limitation. There's not enough Shekhinah to go around. Remember what Esav said to Isaac? what? You only have one blessing? You used up all your blessing already. So, is that the way it is with Shekhinah?
The other thing I was thinking is that the Rambam talks about all these conditions for prophecy. And
Good.
he imposes all these conditions,
Right.
like you have to be really smart. You have to be like the Rambam. You have to be like you have to be, like very, very smart. You have to be rich.
Right. So you're thinking that a little bit on the same wavelength as me. I wanted to actually read out some Rambam in a minute or so. Yeah, David.
It would seem to me, if you look at this, well, I don't know if you can see it, this map of the Sfirot.
Yeah.
That,
beginning of your volume. Yeah.
that Rachel is associated with Malchut.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy had to be married. He had to be with Shekhinah by being married to Rachel in order to have prophecy. I guess, I don't know.
Okay, so it's so interesting. So you're going with the other suggestion that's in the Zohar, right? There are these two things that the Zohar says. So that's the first part. He wasn't married yet.
Yeah.
He wasn't married yet. And as the note says, 89. Beryl, you got 89?
I will. Of course, I flipped the page already. Jacob was not yet married, so he was still incomplete and unfit for prophecy. Rabbi Elazar said, "Any man without a wife is not a man."
Okay. So between these two notes, what we have here is, it seems, and when we get back to the Isaac thing, maybe we can think about it differently. But it seems we're coming from two directions. One direction is to be fit for prophecy, and the other direction is, so that's from below, right? That's the human question. The human conditions have to be met, and the other is, where is Shekhinah? Shekhinah is preoccupied, or Shekhinah is primarily over there by Yitzchak, and is not going to come over to Jacob yet. That's from above, right? That's the other direction. So there can be constraints from one side or the other. I think in the end that actually the constraint with Yitzchak is not, again, that much about Shekhinah can't move over, but rather it's a kibbud of aim question. It's an honoring your parents question. It's also actually a human problem, that as long as Isaac is the patriarch, and as long as Isaac is the spiritual head of the world at this point, with that's where all of God's presence is centered. It's not pasnished. It's not appropriate for a son to start arrogating to themselves that status of being a prophet. Remember what I mentioned last week: a prophet is not private. A prophet is public. A prophet is a public actor. So there would be a little bit of an Oedipal kind of issue going on if Jacob became a prophet in his own right. So as Larry said, one of the great in Jewish tradition, one of the great fundamental treatments of what prophecy is all about comes from Rambam, Maimonides. So I want to read a couple of pages or a couple of selections from the Guide of the Perplexed. And he is the classic source, but then of course many other people have talked about prophecy as well. But Rambam is Rambam. So this is the second part. There are 3 parts to the guide. This is from part 2, and this is chapter 32, which just happens to equal in gematria Lave, heart. So this is in the classic translation by Shlomo Pinas. The opinions of people concerning prophecy are like their opinions concerning the eternity of the world or its creation and time. I mean by this that just as the people to whose mind the existence of the deity is firmly established have, as we have set forth, 3 opinions concerning the eternity of the world, so there are 3 opinions concerning prophecy. So I'm skipping. First opinion, that of the multitude of those among the pagans who consider prophecy as true, right? So the world in general, those people who take prophecy seriously, and also believed by some of the common people professing our Torah. Their opinion is that God, may God be exalted, chooses whom God wishes from among men, turns them into a prophet, sends them with a mission. According to them, it makes no difference whether this individual is a man of knowledge or ignorant, aged or young. Okay. However, they also posit as a condition his having a certain goodness or sound morality. For up to now, people have not gone so far as to say that God sometimes turns a wicked man into a prophet, unless he has first, according to this opinion, turned him into a good man. So the first opinion is that prophecy is whatever God, prophecy happens to whoever God chooses. This is, to use well, I'm not going to, right? God can choose anybody to be a prophet. It's God's, it all comes from above. The second opinion is that of the philosophers. It affirms that prophecy is a certain perfection in the nature of man. So they say, wait, we have to go from below. Prophecy inheres specifically in the faculties of the human being. The perfection is not achieved in any individual from among men, except after a training that makes that which exists in the potentiality of the species pass into actuality, provided an obstacle due to temperament or to some external cause does not hinder this, as is the case with every perfection whose existence is possible in a certain species. So prophecy is an ultimate achievement of a person. And as long as there are no impediments standing in the way of that person, such as poverty, for instance, or such as a bad temper, or such as they're not smart enough, or whatever, if they have all of the necessary qualities and then they work at it, they can become prophets. Prophecy is all about human perfection. For the existence of that perfection in its extreme and ultimate form in every individual of that species is not possible, but it must, however, exist necessarily in at least one particular individual. If in order to be achieved, this perfection requires something that actualizes it, that something necessarily exists. According to this opinion, it is not possible that an ignoramus should turn into a prophet, nor can a man not be a prophet on a certain evening and be a prophet on the following morning, as though he had made some find, right? Hayao. It can't be that you experience this revelation and then tomorrow you're just a regular human being again. Or yesterday you were nothing, and all of a sudden today, poof, you have a prophecy. Prophecy is a characteristic of a human being. Either they have it or they don't. This is the philosophical approach. Things are rather as follows. When in a case of a superior individual who is perfect with respect to his rational and moral qualities, his imaginative faculty is in its most perfect state, and when he has been prepared in the way that you will hear, he will necessarily become a prophet, inasmuch as this is a perfection that belongs to us by nature. According to this opinion, it is not possible that an individual should be fit for prophecy and prepared for it and not become a prophet. Okay? So this is all about if you eat the right foods, as he uses it as the next couple of lines say, if you eat the right foods and you are not infected by some terrible bacterium, you will be nourished and gain weight and be strong. And if you work out in the gym, you'll be fine. Same thing. Prophecy is totally within the attainment of a human being as long as they have all of the good fortune that supports their work toward attaining it. It cannot be withheld from them. So this is the very opposite of the pagan and common opinion, which is it doesn't matter whether you want to be a prophet or not. Either God will make you a prophet or God will not make you a prophet. And this opinion goes the opposite way and says, no, prophecy just means being a perfect human being. A perfect human being cannot help but be a prophet.
Rabbi,
Yeah, Rich.
how does that square with Jonah?
So now we're going to get to, there's a third opinion. Wait, there's a third opinion. The third opinion is the opinion of our Torah. Okay, and the foundation of our doctrine. It is identical with the philosophic opinion, except in one thing. We believe that it may happen that one who is fit for prophecy and prepared for it should not become a prophet, namely on account of the divine will. To my mind, this is like all the miracles and takes the same course as they. For it is a natural thing that everyone who, according to his natural disposition, is fit for prophecy and who has been trained in education and study should become a prophet. He who is prevented from it is like him who has been prevented, like Yeravam, from moving his hand, or like the king of Aram's army seeking out Elisha from seeing. For it's being fundamental with us that the prophet must possess preparation and perfection in the moral and rational qualities, it is indubitably the opinion expressed in their dictum. Prophecy, this is the rabbinic dictum, prophecy only rests upon a wise, strong, and rich man, from the Talmud. Okay, so according to this, there's two directions going on. A person has to work towards prophecy, but then it's still up to God to give the prophecy or not. Right? And with Jonah, you have a particularly interesting and that's what makes that story in many ways so important, is that Jonah seems to have worked toward prophecy and then chickened out at the last moment. Right? That he once he gets touched with the call to be a prophet, he's appalled, he's frightened, he's outraged, whatever, however you want to read that story, and he tries to run away from it, and then in the end he can't run away from it. So that's that hand of God upon him, right? So what Rambam says, is there's this, both directions need to happen at the same time. I want to just read one more piece of what he says. Similarly, you will find that several prophets prophesied during a certain time, and that afterwards prophecy was taken from them and could not be permanent because of an accident that had supervened. This is indubitably the essential and proximate cause of the fact that prophecy was taken away during the time of the exile. So here Rambam is talking about that exile, which we talked about with Ezekiel, is not a geographic problem, right? It's a different kind of problem. Here he goes. For what languor or sadness can befall a man in any state that would be stronger than that due to his being in thrall, a thrall slave in bondage to the ignorant who commit great sins, and in whom the privation of true reason is united to the perfection of the lusts of the beasts. What could be worse than that? To be in exile is to be subject to the garbage of life and to the cruelty of oppressive people who are wicked and not interested in human perfection and in understanding anything. And therefore, you're going to be hit with such a depression, with such a sadness, that you will not be able to open yourself up to prophecy. Right? So this is the Zohar turned on its head. This was what we have. This was with what we have been threatened, and this was what it meant by saying, "They shall run to and fro to seek the word of the Lord, and shall not find it." And it also says, "Her king and her princes are among the nations. The law is no more. The Torah is no more. Yea, her prophets find no vision from the Lord." This is true, and the cause thereof is clear. For the instrument has ceased to function. This also will be the cause for prophecy being restored to us in its habitual form, as has been promised in the days of the Messiah. May he be revealed soon. So it's not that we're going to get back to the land of Israel, and that's where Shekhinah is, and that's when prophecy will start again, but it is the joy that we will experience by being redeemed that will open us up to be able to then experience the prophecy, the prophetic revelations that are there for us to apprehend with God's grace. And of course, the moment of the Messiah is the moment of God's ultimate giving of that kind of grace, of that kind of love, of that kind of generosity. So God will be giving, and we will be ready to receive. So that's this dynamic that goes back and forth, and it brings up the question of: are you ready? Are you prepared enough? Have you done the work? You want, there's a yearning, right? The prophets, as he says, some prophets are going to be seeking prophecy and they won't get it. In another part, he talks about the Bnei Hanaviyim, the sons of prophets. Shaul, at one point, joins with a band of people who are called Bnei Hanaviyim. So Rambam explains, what does that mean, the children of prophets? It means they were apprentices. They were training themselves in the hopes of becoming prophets. They were doing all of the spiritual exercises and the support system of having a camaraderie between them all, to be able to then, when God would, in God's own good time and goodwill, decide to strike them with prophecy, they would be ready. They would be prepared. They would have worked on themselves in terms of moral and intellectual perfection and spiritual purification. And that's what they were doing as a group, as a society, so to speak. And then their hope was, okay, and then maybe they would be touched with prophecy. There's a little bit of a discussion. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel wrote studies about this, about whether Rambam believed that he was going to break this exile curse, this exile obstacle, and whether he was able to get to the point of prophecy or not. So Rabbi Heschel wrote a bunch of long essays about it. I don't know if they were translated into English. He wrote them in Hebrew. So this is the yearning, right? This is the yearning, and this is the question: are you ready? Are you completely qualified? And when we come back to Jacob here, the basic idea is that the Zohar is answering, he wasn't qualified. He wasn't yet qualified for prophecy. Yes, in the end, he is Jacob and he is Israel and he is the most esteemed of the patriarchs, but not yet. Not yet. He's still got a way to go. And the way to go that's being blocked here is being blocked by something that exists and something that doesn't exist. The one thing that exists already is he still has a father alive. I mean, he hasn't shaken himself independent of his father. So he hasn't been able to come into his fullness as an independent being. And then the other obstacle is he hasn't married yet. He's too isolated. He's not yet reached that human fulfillment, the way we have it in the notes, that makes him completed as much as possible on the human level, so that then the divine influx can be released or can be, given to him. So therefore, what he's got is characterized as a dream. We're on 332, unless there are some comments. Anybody wants to make a comment? Okay, let's keep going.
Now you might say, look, even after he was married, it is written, I saw in a dream.
Okay, so let's stop for a second. This is when Jacob is planning to leave Lavan, and he calls his wives, Rachel and Leah, and he takes them out into the field because he figures that his telephone is being tapped, and he doesn't want to tell them where anybody might hear. And he says, I had a dream, and I saw that God is with me, and that the mottled, speckled sheep, and this sheep, and that sheep, everything, God was engineering it all to take care of me, and it's time for me to get out of here. And are you with me or not? And then the wife said, okay, you're right. Our father is really an SOB, and it's time for us to get out of here. So he was already married, and yet he testifies that his vision was a dream. I saw it in a dream. So what's the problem there? Why didn't he have a prophecy? The answer is, Beryl, back to you. But
there the place proved decisive, and Isaac was still alive. So dream is mentioned. Later, when he entered the Holy Land together with the tribes, consummating the essence of the house and the joyous mother of children, it is written, God appeared to Jacob again when he came from Padan Aram, and he blessed him. And similarly, God spoke to Israel in visions of the night. Here, dream is not mentioned, since this issued from another higher rung.
okay, so he's not locked in the dream level, but once he gets into the land of Israel, the place is decisive. He's no longer stuck in exile, and Isaac is certainly by chapter 46, Isaac is not around. And apparently the question is, what's the situation with chapter 35? In chapter 35, I want to just take a peek. Where are we? Yeah. Yeah. So at this point, at least if you read the text in the chronological order that it's written, Isaac is still alive. The Almighty appeared to Jacob again when he came from Padan Aram, and he blessed him. And that's again the reaffirmation of changing Jacob's name, or adding to Jacob's name the name of Israel. And Yitzchak doesn't die. That's verse 9. And Yitzchak doesn't die until verse 29. Right, he sees 27. Jacob finally meets up with his father. And then 28 and 29 is the end of Yitzchak's life and his burial. So Yitzchak is still around. So on the one hand, we've solved the problem of Jacob not being stuck because he wasn't in the land of Israel. He is in the land of Israel. He's also married, so we don't have that problem. Nevertheless, chapter 35, it is written, God appeared to Jacob again when he came from Padan Aram, and he blessed him. Here, dream is not mentioned, since this issued from another higher rung. Right? So, does that mean it's prophecy? That's the question. Since Isaac is still around, has that criterion somehow been eliminated? I want to leave that as a question. Okay, let's go back to later. When he entered the Holy Land together with the tribes meaning his sons, they're not tribes yet, they're still individuals, consummating the essence of the house and the joyous mother of children. So what does that mean? So look at 92.
Consummating the essence of the house and the joyous mother. By then, Jacob had married both Rachel and Leah, who symbolize respectively Shekhinah, essence of the house, and Binah, divine mother. The phrases essence of the house and joyous mother of children derive from Psalms 113:9. He settles Akeret
Habayit.
That barren woman in her home as a joyous mother of children. Akeret, barren woman, is reinterpreted as
Ikar.
essence.
Okay. So the original Psalm verse is God turns a barren woman into a happy mother of children. And it's read here as there's Akeret Habayit, the main person of the house, the Ikar, and then there's Eim Habanim Smecha, the happy mother of children. So who is the main one? The main one is Rachel. And who's the happy mother of children? She had more children than Rachel. That's Leah, right? And the idea is that this is all consummated. Why is it consummated? Because all the 12 sons have now been born already. So their whole purpose of being able to create a Jewish people has been fulfilled. And the essence of the house, the Akeret Habayit and the Eim Habanim Smecha, are accompanying him. So therefore, he's able to go up to the next level. The Zohar is careful to not say, and therefore he is endowed with prophecy, right? They say it's a higher level, use that kind of language. So he's not experiencing just a dream, but it's not labeled yet as prophecy. Okay, let's continue.
Come and see. Dream is transmitted by Gabriel, who stands below on the 6th rung from prophecy. Vision by the rung of that creature who rules the night. Now you might say, look at what is written. Gabriel helped this man understand the vision. Certainly so, for the contents of a vision are more concealed, while a dream is more explicit, clarifying the concealment of the vision. So Gabriel was assigned to clarify the content of the vision, more concealed.
Okay, so then there are some proof texts. So again, the Zohar is trying to somehow sort out these various types of experiences. And they say the lower prophecy is higher than a dream. Prophecy is more encompassing in terms of its sources of divine energies. We had that before. And it's conveyed by Gabriel. So that's one of the archangels. And when we talk about the angels that surround us when we go to sleep at night, right? Michael, Michael, Mimini, Michael, Umismoli, Gabriel, right? So Gabriel is on the left-hand side, and Gabriel's name, by no coincidence, is related to Gvura, right? Is related to that left-hand quality of might, of fearsomeness, of judgment. So dreams come from the angel Gabriel, but angels are not God, right? Angels are below. So the sixth rung from prophecy. So this is how you work this out. If you look at note 94, it tells you to look at a different note. According to the array of divine potencies, prophecy is related very much directly to lower divine powers called Netzach and Hod. So, and Netzach and Hod are on the right and on the left, and they are called God's thighs. They are called God's legs, and specifically the sides of God that are next to, on both sides, and in some way couch and protect Yesod. Yesod is the divine phallus, right? So the in terms of an anthropomorphic diagram, this is the lower part of God's body, the thighs going down, and the phallus in the middle, and then Shekhinah, of course, is coupled with by the phallus, with the two thighs embracing her. So prophecy is understood to be coming from the thighs, right? As a kind of like, from the two sides of the divine embrace, but not directly from the connection of the two halves of God. So if you go Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut, and then Michael, Gabriel, you've got Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut, Michael, Gabriel. You've got 6 rungs, so to speak. So Michael is 6 down from where the thighs begin. When we learned this before, I was saying that the 6 rungs are actually the 6 rungs within the divine, the 6 rungs that are part of the divine that then flow into Shekhinah. Right? That's the trunk, the torso of God coming down to meet the male torso of God, coming down to meet Shekhinah. So we're going to see again and again as we get into the rest of these paragraphs that there's a little bit of a fuzziness, a complication. Where is all of this communication coming from? Where is the contact? Where is the intimacy actually meeting, touching? Where is the human and the divine meeting point? So we're going to have this peripheral, literally the sides of God are alluded to. We have the idea of the very central genital coupling of God with Shekhinah, and then Shekhinah dispenses that divine energy into the world. Then we've got the idea that no, this is a little bit lower down. And so all of these possibilities are being played with here. I think I realize I'm not exactly clarifying things too much, because they're all, I think, they're all at play. What the Zohar is trying to do, though, is again, keep this hierarchy. Dream is dispensed by Gabriel. Prophecy is higher up, right? Vision, that seems to be akin to prophecy, is by the rung of that creature, the word is chaya, right? Who rules the night. So who's the creature that rules the night? Most of the time that's understood as being Shekhinah. So dreams come from a lower divine messenger, but visions come from the divine herself, right? The visions are at that higher level, and then prophecy maybe comes from even higher. Yet Gabriel is involved with elucidating visions, right? How could it be that it says, Gabriel, God says, Gabriel, help this man understand the vision. This is Daniel is seeing the vision. It's hard to understand. Gabriel calls the Atik Yomin, God calls to Gabriel, help him out. So the Zohar says the content of a vision are more concealed, while a dream is more explicit, clarifying the concealment of the vision. So Gabriel was assigned to clarify the content of the vision, more concealed. So this is where you get into kind of like a porous movement. The vision ends up seeping into the realm of dream, so that the dream can be the unlocking of the vision. If the vision is kept in that higher divine concentration or manifestation, it's not going to be accessible. We're not going to be able, the prophet will not be able to process or apprehend the vision completely, or at least sometimes that's the case. And therefore you need a buffering. You need a kind of a mitigating of the power of the abstruseness of the vision, an interpretive vehicle that reveals a little bit. And that's the dream. So what the Zohar is allowing here is that sometimes a dream is really not just a dream. After all of these distinctions that we make between the prophecy is up there and the dream is down here, in the end, the dream may be the vestibule of entering into a prophecy. But it's the necessary lower step to get us higher up, to use a little imagery from a ladder, right? In order to get higher up into heaven, we have to start down below on the earth. So the dream will be that first step that unlocks the process. All right, we have a little bit more time. Let's get the proof texts. Therefore,
concerning vision, it is written, Vayera, he appeared.
Va'era,
I appeared. Why? Because mareh,
mar'eh,
a vision, resembles mar'ah, a
Right.
mirror in which all images appear. So Va'era, I appeared, I revealed my image through El Shaddai, who was mar'ah, a mirror displaying another image, reflecting all supernal images.
okay. So clear as a bell, right? Good, I'm glad. So there's a little playfulness here. There's a little bit of like juggling these words again, one back and forth, whether it's first person or third person, but also the difference between a mar'eh and a mar'ah. So a mar'ah is a mirror. What happens when you put a mirror in front of something, or you put somebody in front of a mirror, something in front of a mirror? So you get a direct correspondence, obviously reversed, a little bit less vivid, but basically it's just one-to-one. right? Maybe it's smaller, but there's a one-to-one correspondence between the image and the thing that's being mirrored. Okay, acceptable enough? But what's the story with a mar'eh? That brings us back to the dynamism, right? A mirror image is not capable of dynamism. It's not capable of transformation. It's not capable of any movement or change. A mar'eh, a vision, is all about transformation and change and movement. So, but what happens is that one can help lead to the other. Right? So this is what the Zohar is saying here. That's the mar'eh, the mar'ah is like Gabriel. Gabriel, the angel, can only do a mirroring image. Gabriel can't do more than that. But by offering the mirror, Gabriel lets us see more clearly, more simply, more immediately, and then the rest follows. Where does the rest come from? Where does the dynamism come from? It comes from both sources. It comes from above and below. It comes from the divine energy that's coming, but it also comes from the human reaching out, from the human yearning, for the human arousal. So the mirror is a static object, right? If you stand in front of a mirror, the mirror can't make anything move or change. But if you move, then the image in the mirror moves. If you tilt the mirror one way or another, the image gets changed. So the mirror is completely a passive reflector. Just like an angel has no real choice of itself, it has no real sense of awareness. The whole point of an angel is it does what it's supposed to do, right? It's an adequate vehicle for fulfilling some kind of mission that it's sent to accomplish. But the reaching out, that comes from above and below. Right? And Gabriel is stuck in the middle. So the different ways that prophecy can play itself out, whether it will happen or not, what kind of prophecy, what kind of experience, the intensity, the duration, the effect, all of those are variables that come out of the circumstances that are happening within the divine and the circumstances that are happening within the human being and their environment. All right, we're going to stop here and we'll hopefully continue next week. I want to just point out, next week is the 18th, correct? Then 25th, the week after, we will not be meeting, right? That's going to be too close to Pesach. So we're going to skip the 25th, and we'll be able to resume, God willing, on April Fool's Day. How's that? Okay. Next week, yes, and then the following week, no. So hopefully I'll have a good chance to wish everybody a Zisen Pesach next week.
Does that apply to the Torah study also, the same schedule?
On the 25th.
On the 25th, yeah. and the April 1st?
April 1st, back to normal.
For both classes?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi. Yishkoach.
Thank you.